All right, welcome, welcome. If you are new here, I'm so glad you came to join us. I hope you find it to be a really good use of your time. If you're returning, I'm so glad you came back. I say this every week. Friday's my favorite time to join everybody who's just eager to really just skyrocket in their role. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos on legal technology talk. So this topic is super cool, and I'm going to preface that I've already got a few emails saying I'm really sad I'm missing one. This one, the topic looks awesome. So I am going to let Beth take it from here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Oh, sorry, I lost my share button there for a minute. Couldn't figure out where it went. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a feeling that many law firm owners and staff know all too well, even if they don't have a name for it. And that is the feeling of fragility. That's the feeling that even though the firm is successful, you're always just one bad cold or one unexpected resignation away from a total operational meltdown. So this dependence creates a precarious environment. The absence of a key player or a failure in a critical process can lead to operational breakdowns, affects productivity, and your overall success. So what leads to those? We often fall into the culture trap when firms depend heavily on superstar employees. Critical knowledge remains locked away, and that risks operational stability and continuity if those individuals leave or become unavailable. So then let's look at superstar Sarah. Sarah's been with the firm for 6 years. She's incredible. She knows exactly how every client likes their coffee. She knows that Judge Miller hates blue back filings. And she has unwritten rules for every design meeting memorized. She knows how everything works in the office and every piece of data moves from one place to the other. She also has a system for doing her follow-ups. She's adjusted things to what works for her, even if it's not aligned with the overall process, but it's efficient and it works great. And she's awesome, right? The firm thinks it's efficient because Sarah's so fast, but Sarah's actually a structural crack because Sarah is so good that no one else has bothered to learn her systems. In the tech world, they call this a bus factor. It's a morbid question, but if Sarah were hit by a bus tomorrow, how many days could the firm survive? For many of you, if your Sarah disappears, your firm stops breathing within 24 hours. Understanding this metric helps identify vulnerabilities within the organization and the potential impact of losing these individuals on overall productivity and success. So the bus factor serves as a metric to measure how many key personnel are essential for the firm's operation. A low bus factor indicates a high risk. If a critical person were to leave, the firm may struggle to continue functioning effectively. So fragility isn't caused by the lack of hard work, because Sarah's a hard worker. She works 60 hours a week, very hard in all those 60 hours. It's caused by a lack of structural overlap. Individual efficiency is Sarah doing things fast and efficient for what she's doing. Resilience is making sure those things keep happening even when Sarah's on a beach in Hawaii, which is a much better thought than being hit by a bus. So this involves creating systems that allow for overlapping roles, shared knowledge, and ensuring continuing regardless of personnel changes. Doesn't matter where Sarah is, we still know what to do. That's resilience. So this represents a core shift in the firm. So we know we've all said, I can do it myself faster. And believe me, I say that a lot, and I hear John say that a lot, and then it gets us in trouble later on. We all do it, okay? Um, so instead of developing a system to do a process, um, that's what we do. This shift is moving from individual work and efficiency individually to structural resilience that doesn't rely on one person's individual contribution. we ran into this very thing, and I'll give you an example of this. It was easy and quick for John to just put together a contractor invoice and send it out. But it relied on perfect but not controlled communication from me to him. That's a problem. There wasn't a structure there to make sure I gathered the information that I needed or that it was communicated correctly to John. But by putting that into a system that ensured it happened, that builds a solid foundation that doesn't crack when one person's out of the picture. Doing it the old way, I couldn't send a contract without John because he knew where everything was and he knew what he needed to do and whatnot else. And I, I didn't know what I was doing. So, yeah, that was a problem. But by putting a process in place, actually I have a form I need to fill out. When I fill that form out, then it does something. And I can say, oh, do it manually, and it sends it to John, and then he has to do it manually. But in any case, that is a process where it's requiring me to grab the correct information. And believe me, if there's something on that form that's not required and I forget it one time, John goes in and makes it required, and I can't forget it again because that's what happens. Um, so in order to make this improvement, we need to find the cracks. So let's look at how those cracks manifest in real world scenarios. First, let's consider a bleed spike shutdown. This is a great problem to have, but it can be very frustrating when it happens. So imagining your marketing Mike, he hits a home run with a new ad campaign. Monday morning, the firm gets 40 new inquiries, triple your normal volume. In a fragile firm, that's a disaster. The one intake specialist is overwhelmed. Calls aren't returned for 48 hours. By the time she catches up, those leads have already hired the firm down the street because Mike kicked that thought into their brain and they didn't get a response back right away. They went somewhere else to get it. So Mike's marketing success actually broke the firm because there was no redundant system in place to handle the spikes. Next, we have the only one who knows syndrome. So let me tell you about the office manager, Olivia, and some of you are those. Olivia is the only one with global access to the firm's 365 account. And last year, Olivia went on her honeymoon to a remote island with zero self-service. Great for her, but while she was away, a security update triggered a change that caused every single outgoing firm email to fail. Now what happens? No one else has the admin credentials. The firm's communication was paralyzed. The attorney couldn't send filings. Staff couldn't reach clients. The firm was looking at being effectively dark for 10 days because Olivia was the only person who could log in and fix the issue without involving a lot of work and money to an outside vendor to assist them. And finally, there's technical fragility, but not necessarily. So let's look at data entry, David. David's job is the manual handshake. Every time a client's hired, David has to copy the client's information from the attorney's meeting notes on a yellow pad. We know what those are. And retype them in the drafting software so the documents can be created. It's boring, repetitive, but a skilled task. One, he has to be able to read the attorney's scratch, and then he also needs to be able to interpret what that means. And the firm relies on that. So one week, David gets flu. Suddenly, drafting department has no work because the bridge, that information and the document, all that bridge between those two, it's broken. That's David, and it's gone. System isn't broken. It just relied on a human bridge that wasn't built to be redundant because nobody else knew how to do that. So let's take a workflow and put it through a stress test. I'm going to keep this kind of high level, but go into it a little more. One, the intake call. If your intake specialist is out, do you have a recorded standard or a script? Does anyone know how to schedule meetings with the attorney, or is that some high secret process that's in place? Do they know what to do if there's a question they don't know the answer to, or how to register someone for a workshop? If the answer is no, it's all in her head, then you're one flu season away from a lead drought. And I've seen this happen multiple times. The person filling in does manage to get information in, but they do it the only way they know how. And then automations don't fire, clients get confused. Your intake specialist spends the first half of her day back trying to figure out what happened. Like, because it just looked like a bomb went off in her area. She doesn't know where anything is. And she tries to clean it all up. So that is one critical step in the process. And the other one, what about closing the deal? This is truly the most critical moment. If a lead is ready to sign after their consultation, but the person that's authorized to close, finalize the fee, get the signature, all that stuff is unavailable, the deal stalls. So what I mean by that is sometimes we'll have a head attorney that's over everything. And so if somebody is doing any quoting any prices, anything else, it needs to be run by them. If they're not there, nobody can close a deal. Like you've locked that in place. So putting standards in place where you have this is what it costs and we don't deviate from this, and this is our set price for these packages, that really helps to firm up that whole process. So does your firm require a specific closer, or is the process standardized so your momentum isn't lost? And this isn't just having a person to close. This also applies and goes into making deals. So if you have where, a basic will and powers of attorney are $1,500. Oh, but this time I'm going to do them for 12, and this time I'm going to do them for 11, and this time I'm going to do them for 13. Jumping out of that process and out of that standardization can really throw everything off. And then the design meeting. Is the data that's captured here standardized, or does the attorney take mental notes that they never share? They're the only one who knows the client's design preferences. Paralegal can then be paralyzed. Data doesn't move through the process. And then the attorney became the bottleneck. We need to look for lead lag indicators. When volume increases, which of these people, Sarah, Mike, Olivia, David, breaks first? That's where your fragility lives. Understanding that allows for targeted support, resource allocation, ensuring that no single point of failure jeopardizes your operations. So how do we fix it? Well, we move from tribal knowledge to documented systems. Redundancy manuals. Standardization is your insurance policy. When you document a process, you're cloning your superstars. You're taking the genius out of Sarah's head and putting it into a manual or form that a temp or a new hire could follow in an emergency. This systematic approach not only mitigates the risk of information loss, but also empowers team members to perform tasks confidently, regardless of someone's availability. It also makes Sarah the owner of the process and the keeper of the standards for that process. Doesn't lessen her role or importance, but it moves her from worker bee to the architect. And then this leads to cross-training. We often think specialization is the key to speed, but a team of specialists who can't do each other's job is fragile. If you have a team of specialists that can't do each other's job, everybody needs a backup, which means doubling the size of your staff just to be able to run. And then what are those people doing normally? Every staff member should be able to be a backup for at least one other core workflow step. So when I was in manufacturing, we had floaters, okay? People who knew how to run every machine in the plant. They floated around covering absences. That works fine till you run out of floaters. We moved to a cross-training program where everyone needed to know how to run at least three machines. That added so much flexibility to the floor that vacation season just ran as smoothly as any other time. Otherwise, you were denying vacations all over the place because you didn't have enough floaters, and it was a mess. So having team members able to step in and do a task when necessary is such an important part of strengthening the flexibility and the resilience of your team. And of course, we would bring this into the mix. Use automation as your unfailing staff member. Follow-up sequence shouldn't depend on a human like David manually moving data. Automation never calls in sick. It never forgets Olivia's admin password, and it doesn't get burned out. It provides a technical redundancy that allows your humans to focus on the high level of legal work. Maybe you want to be calling everyone who attended a workshop. That's a great way to connect. What happens if the bus factor kicks in and the person who makes those calls not there? If you have other follow-ups happening, it isn't as important to have another team member sit down and make calls for 6 hours, in addition to all their other work. But you don't want to lose that, so automation is your backup to that. Automation's still following up with them, and they haven't fallen through the cracks. They're still getting those touches. So by integrating your technology into repetitive tasks, firms can ensure consistent operations, maintain productivity, even in the absence of key personnel. So I want to give you a challenge, the 24-hour absence test. I want everyone to identify one task you do, just one, that literally no one else in your firm knows how to perform. It might be a login you have, a specific way to file something, a report that's run, something. One thing that you do that nobody else knows how to do. And then the goal is a redundancy goal. Document it. Documentation can take the form of written guides, an instructional video, checklist, ensuring that the knowledge is accessible and transferable, reducing your operational fragility. That is the ultimate goal. Because a firm that depends on a hero is a firm in danger. We all love our heroes, but we really need to have the backups to those heroes. But a firm that depends on a system is a firm built to last. Transitioning from a hero culture to an architect mindset requires redefining roles within the firm. So that shift promotes teamwork, collaborative systems, strong foundation that supports resilience instead of relying on an individual star performers. We can stop being heroes and start being architects to end up with a firm that's flexible, resilient, and strong. So our key takeaways today is identify your bus factor. The Sarahs, Mikes, Olivias, Davids of the firm. What falls apart if one of them is missing? How bad is that? And then standardize the handoff of information between processes in your firm. Is there a system and is it working and what keeps it in place? And create a redundancy manual for every single point of failure that you identify. Look at different ways to do stuff and make sure that nothing stops just because one person gets a cold. And those are your takeaways, and your handouts actually have they're part of a worksheet that you can work through and actually take notes on that challenge to you to find your weak points in your firm. And remember, you can always call us to assist in systematizing your process. Absolutely. We'd love to help you with that. John? I know John has stuff to add. He always does.
I don't have a lot today, but when you mentioned the contract story and just how real it is, yeah, we are a tech firm. You all are law firms, but operationally, it should work the same with melding together and being flexible and losing the fragility. So Beth was talking about the contract, how she can send it now and how easy it is. We're always growing too, because I just put a note in bold red on her form to not forget something. I put it where I think it works. She can move it, but it's there now. That's a system. It's flexible because she can put it where it makes sense to her, but I put it so she doesn't miss it. So we're still growing, we're still pushing forward in all of that. So the fragility lessens, and the flexibility increases. Um, Churchill Office, that's the estate planning firm we worked in. We've told our story a couple times on here, not a lot, but it's a perfect example of thinking a firm is strong and instantly learning how fragile it was. So, Beth, I just want you to quickly tell that story from the perspective of this conversation today. We've told it, but not truly how fragile our firm was, and we didn't even realize it. We thought we had it together.
Right. So we were a single attorney firm. And I do want to say that none of what happened would have been possible hadn't we been moving in that direction already. So we were a single attorney firm and we were poised to be able to grow very rapidly. We were putting things in place. One of the first things that were going in place was John was going to start teaching the workshops. So John started teaching the workshops, that comes off the attorney plate. So now that's off her plate. That opens up more time for her to have meetings. Okay, so that was kind of step one. Um, Step two of that was we hired a baby attorney straight out of law school. And yeah, and him and I were going to be doing the client meetings, and I had started sitting in on client meetings and knowing what was going on in those meetings. And we're not talking, let me just clarify that. We're not talking about consultations where you're giving legal advice. There's a very distinct difference there. But building on that information given out in the workshop and building on that where you're not giving legal advice, but you are giving them information. So um, we were making, we were progressing towards that. The day that John was supposed to teach his first workshop, we get a call in the morning from our attorney. And she says, I'm not coming in today. I was in a car accident last night at 2 o'clock in the morning. And my friend and I were hit head on by a drunk driver. And the area of road that she was going on was a 70-mile-an-hour road. So it was a 140-mile-an-hour crash. They walked away from it. However, we're like, okay, she's like, I'm fine. I've been checked out. We're fine. So we went go through the day. John teaches the workshop. I believe we did a couple meetings that day with the whole thing of, your next meeting will be with her because, she's fine, right? That afternoon, she asked me to go pick up a prescription for her. And granted, that's not usually something you ask your staff, but she was also a friend. Okay, so don't take that. But I'm like, sure, I'll come down, and I'll do all this stuff. And I went and I got her prescription. I went back to her house, and she wasn't making any sense. She thought she was having a perfectly normal conversation with me, and she was not. Like her words, they were words, but they weren't in the right order. Like it was bad. So I called her sister and I said, you need to get over here. Um, there's something going on. Like this isn't right. So we got her into the hospital. Her sister got her in the hospital and stuff. And yeah, she had a traumatic brain injury, brain swelling. Yeah, she wasn't making any sense. She thought she was, but she wasn't. Things went pretty much downhill from there. She was able to, she is now a functioning person, okay, but she cannot practice law because of the brain injury. It, she can function perfectly as a normal person. She doesn't need people to take care of her. I'll put it that way. Um, and all of that, but she can't practice law. So what came out of that was we had a phone call the next morning with Molly because now we don't even know what's going on with her. We have no idea what her prognosis is, what's going on, but we have a firm full of potential clients, and staff. And so we had a phone call with Molly. And I'll never forget the that phone call with Molly. Because I'm like, what are we supposed to do? Because I don't know what we're supposed to do. What are we supposed to do? And Molly goes, well, continue what you're doing. And I'm like, well, okay, but who's supposed to meet with these attorneys? She goes, you are. Get in the conference room, meet with them. Don't you cancel another meeting. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, I'm supposed to do what? Yeah, and so she guided us through that, but that is what we did. So we had an attorney, baby attorney, and we did have an attorney friend who was doing all of the attorney oversight and everything else with that. But John was doing workshops. John was doing most of the client interaction stuff. We had a front office, an intake person, and she was doing a lot of client interaction. She was keeping the main part of the office like running, um, uh, the physically running part of it. And I was doing meetings. Our new attorney was doing meetings. We were coordinating everything with this other attorney in between his schedule and sending drafts to him for review and doing all of that kind of stuff. And it was crazy, but it worked. And even we had those processes in place. Was it fragile? Yes. It took us a couple days to like get our feet under us and go, okay. It took us a couple days to where we weren't canceling meetings. I'll put it that way. Getting our feet under us took a little bit longer in that because there was processes that we hadn't laid out and we hadn't backed up. And so we had to do that work in the middle of keeping everything else going. Because in the middle of that, if we don't keep our clients flowing through, we don't get paid. So like that was, we were very bought in at that point. There was no choice there. So that's what happened. And those redundancies really taught us that, yeah, you have to have backups to everything because anything can happen. You can be coming home from it was an art showing or something that her and her friend were at and be hit by a drunk driver. So, any of those things can happen to anybody. Yep.
Yeah, and I always like that story. It People always say, you're giving the extreme. Um, but then I say, are we?
Yeah.
Because it happened to us. And so those things do happen, and
Yep.
you should prepare in the same manner that your firm is so structurally sound that that could happen. And I'm not saying it's not going to rattle your cages, but the firm keeps moving. So that's why I say it's really not that extreme because that's how structurally sound and flexible your firm should be built. You should have that in mind. If this happened, how would we move forward without taking down the sign on the front of the building? So yeah, the next thing I had was if someone is missing that day, we talk about, they have it in their brain, and if they're gone, does everything break down? But you know what else sucks? When you have to call and text them off the clock. If they're on vacation, if they're sick, it's a different time. People in their off time, whether it's sick or on vacation, that's what they want to be. Unless you're paying them to work off the clock, or for, 24-hour time, people need that brain break. And so it sucks for them. And it's not their fault also that it's not built to stand without them. Sometimes it is. Some people intentionally do that. And as business owners and colleagues, don't let your other colleagues do that because some will hold it close to their chest. But you don't want that. And so that's why you need to work as a team together to get rid of the fragility and put in the flexibility. It's really going to make a difference in the firm and for people to be able to be sick or be on vacation and truly disconnect. And then, Beth, you talked about cross training and documenting the process. One thing I thought about was the process can be documented as simple as new lead calls. And it just says open the intake form by clicking here and here. And that could be the end of the documentation if your intake form is built to support anybody doing it. How do you get it there? By doing mock intake calls with lots of different people in your firm and fixing the breaks. If it is not built for that, then you do need to document it properly of how to go through an intake call. I like to err on the side of just have the form do what it needs to do and walk anybody who sits down to do it. And the documentation just says, here's how you get to the intake form. And I think Beth has it up. Go ahead, Beth. That was all I had,
Absolutely.
actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you build, and this is one place where technology really can help you out. Because don't, so many times, this is like a fine line. So many times firms want everything documented, and they go too far the other direction. Where you can have your technology back you up for this. And like John said, the instruction becomes answer the phone. And there's some firms that actually put up here what to say when you answer the phone. Like answer the phone, say hello. This is this law firm. Here's who you're talking to. What can I help you with? And you start right here and go the whole way down the whole way down the form. And the form should be built out enough that it does that for you. Like this one, it's set up with estate planning, and you go down through and it guides you through all that information. And then it lists out what those options are. Somebody doesn't need to know that. It is written right here. And if you change it, it's changed right here. You can attend one of our workshops. This tells you what to tell them. Option two is to schedule a consultation with our attorney. We require a consultation fee, and then if they go down here and it says, okay, and then it'll tell them we require this to be paid prior. You can choose to pay it now, or I can send you a paid invoice link. Do you want to pay it now? Yes, pay now. It tells the person what to do. Go to the last page, take payment. Like it walks through every single thing. And so if your intake person's out and somebody else has to answer the phone, this is their guide. They don't need to be going and looking at a script and going, what am I supposed to say next? And oh, if it's this, I need to go here and laying all that out. Let technology help you with that. The other way that we do things a lot is, and I'll show you this, where we put the report in. We use a lot of things in here. So I'll put like workshop forms to update. This is another place that this is really helpful. You can use your custom dashboards and put these in. So these workshop forms to update, here's the form. Like that's the form where I need to add my workshops when I add them. I don't need to write down somewhere or remember somewhere which forms I need to go update and where I need to add stuff. I can put it right here. And then links to my quick reports, the ones that I need. And down here, here's the report update instructions. Here's step-by-step instructions on how to update the report. It's right here. You don't need a separate book for it. You don't need it somewhere else. It's right here to do it. So that's one way that technology can really help you out with getting that on paper, so to speak, but getting it in there for everyone to be able to use.
Yeah, and you can even put sections that is the basics of client services or paralegal. So you could have a box that says client services, and there could be basic links to wherever you have your knowledge base that says someone's calling, and you're like, oh, someone's calling, crap. Click it, and it's going to say, um, I need to update the workshop dates. Click here, and then it would go to something like Beth showed you. But you could have the basics of their role
Mhm.
to get you through a day there, or for paralegal or attorney, whatever it might be that would be more admin focused because an attorney really, but attorneys can cover for other attorneys. And so that it's just a really good landing spot to have quick links, not necessarily an entire knowledge base hosted here, but quick links to basic information.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else, Beth, before we go into open
Nope.
Q&A?
Nope. Let's get some Q&A going.
All right. So let's go ahead and stop the recording.